What's up guys, Kyle here again, and today we're taking a look at a couple of killer boosts from Westminister effects, the 1689 Overdrive and the Augustine Clean Boost. Let's do it! Alright guys, hope you're doing great out there today. My name is Kyle, and if this is your first time here at my channel, what I do is I take awesome high gain amplifiers, overdrives, guitar cab speakers, pickups. I record them with a simple SM57 setup, and I give you guys the unprocessed audio on your end. So if you're into E-standard thrash riffs, drop C hardcore riffs, and dudes that just remembered they forgot to brush their teeth this morning, you're in the right place. Consider hitting the like button and subscribing on your way out so you don't miss any more of my stuff. Thanks! Alright guys, so today we have a double feature. I've got two different awesome overdrive pedals from Westminister Effects. We have the 1689 and the Augustine Clean Boost. Westminister Effects is a small company built right here in the USA and owned by my friend Cody Fields, who was actually introduced to me by Greg Campbell at Angry Tones at Summer NAMM this year. So Cody and I struck up a conversation at NAMM, kind of got to know each other a little bit and stayed in touch after the show. So he hit me up and asked if he could send me a couple pedals to check out on the channel, and I said of course. So thanks Cody, man, I appreciate you sending these out. And even though Westminister Effects sent me these pedals for free to check out for a review, you guys are still gonna get my honest opinion as always, so keep that in mind. So first off, we have the Augustine Clean Boost, and what this is essentially a take on the TC integrated preamp, but this pedal has an 18-volt charge pump inside. Now the TC integrated preamp, one of the popular things to do with the original was to run it at 18 volts because it gave the pedal more output, more beefiness, and people just seemed to like the way that it sounded better at 18 volts. So the Augustine has the 18-volt charge pump built into the pedal, so you don't have to worry about that. Plug it into your standard 9-volt adapter and you're good to go. And then over here we have the 1689 Overdrive, which is essentially a combination of the Ibanez TS9 Tube Screamer and a Klon Centaur pedal, which I think is a really interesting combo because not a lot of people really stick those two together in the same box or try to implement them together. So we've got a gain knob over here, we've got our volume here. Here we have a clean blend. So I have it all the way up, which means that the 1689 is fully essentially in the circuit. The more we pull this back, the more we're going to get our, more of our guitar's clean, unadulterated tone. The more you blend that in, the more the pedal's voicing starts to come into play. So that's a cool feature. Over here, we obviously have a tone knob. And then up top, we have a clipping selector. So down is symmetrical clipping and up is asymmetrical clipping. So it gives you a few different options and definitely has kind of a cooler sound, kind of a little bit more of a unique sound than just your standard old TS9. And it sort of reminds me of a Klon in the way that when you boost that volume all the way up, but you don't introduce any clipping from the pedal, it just kind of fattens up the signal a little bit and adds a little bit of push. But when you add a little bit of gain, the clipping really starts to come into play and really starts to shape the tone a lot more. So I actually have the clipping turned up to just where it starts to add some of its clipping to the preamp of the EVH 5150 here, which is what we're running through. And I think that that gives it a really nice sound. It leaves the bass intact a little bit more than a standard TS9 Tube Screamer would. And it just sounds really good. You guys heard it on the intro clip. I actually think that this thing sounds great. So I am going to sample these pedals on each of these 3 amps, which means that we've got a lot of ground to cover. So I'm gonna shut up and we're gonna get into it. I'm gonna turn the Augustine off and we are going into the blue channel. Here's the blue channel, the EVH with no drive. All right, let's go ahead and kick that 1689 in. Definitely gives you kind of that midsection of a TS9 a little bit, but it adds a little bit more top end. It doesn't remove as much low end, but I'm gonna show you guys this blend knob as well. Let's slowly turn that as we're playing. All right, so as you can tell, it's a little bit of a subtle difference, honestly, but it is there, especially once you get above noon. It kind of starts to add a little bit more of that top end brightness, and it starts to tighten the bass just a little bit more. So over here on our tone knob, I'm gonna dial that back and we'll run through that a little bit as well. So the higher you dial that tone knob up, the more it brings out the upper mids and the highs, which I like. So we're gonna leave that dialed fairly high. Now, if we turn this blend all the way down, I haven't messed with this yet, but let's see if the tone has the same effect. Yeah, it definitely still works whether you have the blend turned all the way off or all the way on, so that's something to keep in mind as well. Let's put the blend at halfway. Let's leave it half and half. We're getting a nice clean boost signal out of that right there. I think that sounds really good. Last but not least, let's flip the clipping into asymmetrical. In asymmetrical mode, it has a little bit of a brighter and raspier style of clipping, which you should be able to notice. So when you have it up, it provides a little bit more of a grittier type of overdrive, and it just gives it a little bit more of an angry and aggressive feel to it. So turn the boost off again. And one more time, turn it back on. So as you can tell, it's still keeping a lot of that low end intact, but it is adding some output. It's adding a little bit of clipping from the circuit, and it's adding some upper mid and high frequencies, and really just kind of making for a nice boost. I personally like it with the in the symmetrical clipping mode. It's just a little bit more pleasant, the saturation to my ears. Let's add a little bit more clipping. All right, so I think that sounds great. Like, honestly, I really dig that. I dig what it's doing to the blue channel of the EVH. Let's turn that off and let's check out the Augustine. Here again is the blue channel with no drive. And with the drive on. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put the bass and the treble both at noon. Here's how it sounds with the bass, treble, and volume at noon. With TC integrated preamp circuits, you kind of have to be careful with the volume because you can overload the front of a lot of amps. And really, there are only a few amps that I've found that can take a decent amount of output from these pedals. The original 5150s can pretty much take all of it. This one, you can overload it on the blue channel. It'll literally start to cut out. The rectifier takes it very well. I've noticed it doesn't seem to work very well on Marshall circuits, but we'll check it out anyway. So here it is with everything at noon. And again with no boost. So that really is just kind of providing a clean volume boost to your signal at this point. Really huge low end response on that, which is kind of a lot of fun. I'm gonna dial the lows back a little bit. Let's get a little bit more volume on this. And with dialing that volume up, it fattens it up regardless. So let's pull the volume back a little bit. Let's add a little bit of treble. All right, but really what a lot of people like to do on these pedals is to pull that bass back a lot so it really tightens everything up and adds kind of like a clanky effect to the palm mutes. Now I'm gonna push that volume and show you what happens when you push the volume too high. It's not a fault to this pedal by any means because all the TC integrated preamps do it, but I'm just showing you. You can literally overload the preamp and that's how you know you have too much volume coming from the pedal. So just, you know, you're gonna have to be mindful of where you set that volume because you can start clipping the front end, like overdriving it too much to the point where it starts crapping the bed. So, all right, so we are on the triple rectifier. We are on the vintage mode. Let's hear how it sounds without the boost and then I'll kick in the Augustine. That is punchy. It is also very hot. The pedal definitely is really slamming the front end of the rectifier. Let's turn the gain back just a little bit more on the rec. And let's go down tuned a little bit. All right, so we're in drop C. Massive difference when you turn that pedal off. So it really is pushing the front end of the amp very hard. It's also removing a lot of the bass frequencies and kind of just giving it an overall very aggressive and very bright and forward style sound, which, you know, that's what these pedals are popular for in the first place. That's why they work so well on amps like the rectifier. So this thing definitely does a great job at that. Let's turn on the 1689 and see what type of tones that we get from that pedal. All right, so immediately I'm noticing that that has more mid push and more high end. Let's actually pull the volume back a little bit, pull the tone back a tad, and let's put the gain right about there. All right, so with the volume pulled back, that removes a lot of the output, but it clears things up a little bit. Let's add a little bit more gain to the amp. So again, it's a lot like a combination of a tube screamer and a Klon. I definitely get why Cody says that about it, because when you push that volume up, it fattens things up significantly. So when you pull it back a little bit, it kind of thins it out in a good way. It adds a little bit more clarity to the signal. When you're pushing it, you're really pushing the front end of the amp quite a bit. It adds the mids kind of like a tube screamer does, and it adds the clipping in a similar style, but it also adds the fullness and the push of a Klon. So really kind of a cool combination there. Ah, that sounds really good. I really dig that. That That's working for me. The 1689 is definitely working for me. Let's try the same thing on the Augustine here. Last but not least, let's check it out on the Marshall. We'll do a quick clip on both and then we'll call it a day. All right guys, last but not least, we are on the JCM 2000 DSL 50. Here's the amp with no boost. Here it is with the Augustine. Let's see if it even works. Okay, so it does, but we have way more high frequencies. Let's dial that treble back. Let's dial the bass. Okay, definitely works on the Marshall. It sounds freaking awesome, and the Marshall's not crapping out at all. It sounds fantastic, and I think it sounds better on the Marshall than it does either of these two amps, because the Marshall has so much mids that you don't need the mid boost from the pedal to really make the mids sit forward. So really dig that. That sounded ridiculous. Over to the 1689. All right, so let's up the volume on that for sure. Let's go back down into the symmetrical clipping. All right, that is gonna do it for me on both of these Westminster effects pedals today. Again, we had the Augustine Clean Boost and the 1689 Overdrive. What did you guys think about these pedals? Let me know down in the comments. I personally really enjoyed both of them for different reasons. I think the Augustine definitely does the TC integrated preamp thing really, really well. So the 1689 definitely is a really cool, different take on a Tube Screamer style pedal where it's got some of the Klon circuitry built in. Definitely adds a fatter low end. It doesn't take out quite as much of the low end, and it makes for a really punchy overdrive in front of these amps. So I really dig both of these. You can find both of these pedals at westministereffects.com. I believe right now the price on either of these is gonna be $149.99 each. Fully think that they're worth it. They're built here in the United States, and you'd be supporting a small local business while getting yourself a couple of awesome pedals in the process. So if you liked the video, hit the like button on the way out. Consider subscribing so you don't miss any more of my future videos. Down in the description of this video are all my support links, including my Sweetwater affiliate link. You click that link, get yourself something nice from the fine folks at Sweetwater. I get a little kickback. It costs you nothing extra, and it greatly helps my channel grow. Or you can consider becoming one of these fine people here in my Patreon community and supporting the channel that way. And last but not least, in the description of this video, you can find my Facebook group and Discord server. Consider checking those out if you get a chance. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Kyle here again, and we'll see you next time.